If you have the ability to dim your lights, maybe consider doing that for yourself. Whether that just means turning off one of the lights that you typically use. If you're familiar with my cues, you know I'm pretty detailed. So I will demonstrate, but I also want to cue in such a way so that if you're on the ground, you can kind of grok what I'm saying, you know, just by listening. Does that make sense, everyone?
Sure.
So we'll start on our backs. So this is where the pillows come in pretty much immediately. If you can just find whatever pillow configuration works best for you. That can be a pillow behind the back of the head or behind the knees to help neutralize the spine a little bit. This is going to be a on the ground stretch and also controlled articular rotation or CARS class. I'll try to give modifications for each and everything that I do, okay? Is everyone good with that? So if I sense that you're not quite in a position to be laying down or anything like that, I'll make sure that I give you some analogs. So the first place that I want to start from is a total place of stillness. I think a lot of people's attentions are spread and diffuse outward. So we'll just take a little bit of time to start to bring that attention inward. Start to notice what's happening in the inner space of the body. Just take that inventory. While you're sitting or lying down, just notice how your body is responding to gravity. Where does your body feel heavy on the ground? Where does your body feel a little lighter? Closing your eyes is a good way just to tune in a little bit more what's happening in these inner spaces. Is there tension in the neck and shoulders? Is there tension in the hips or in the tops of the ribs? Is the breath feeling a little bit tight or restrictive? Is it feeling shallow or jagged? And so as we start to tune into this breath cycle a little bit more, friends, I'm going to invite you to take the palms of your hands and place them on the low ribs, fingertips in. Seated or standing, this will work fine. And let's just start to direct that breath a little deeper and a little wider out in all directions. So as we're starting to deepen that breath from the upper chest and the upper ribs down into the low belly, think about expanding the low back on the inhale. Think about expanding the rib cage in all of its entirety, 360 degrees, front ribs, side ribs, and back ribs on the inhale. Think about expanding out on the inhale instead of expanding up. And see if you can feel with your hands on your low ribs, the rib cage expanding out on the in-breath, and the fingertips coming together a little bit on the out-breath on the exhale. And so all I want you to do in your own space and in your own time is to just focus on this very essential in-breath, out-breath oscillation. We're starting from the most basics, or most basic. It's very simple, neutral body and breath awareness. And so on the in-breath, we're thinking about expanding out in all directions. On the out-breath, let's think about releasing or surrendering a little bit of that tension into the floor. And this visualization, this practice can work on your back or seated. You're inhaling and expanding the body outward and the awareness outward. And on the exhale, you're releasing, you're surrendering. You're allowing some of that tension that you're carrying in your body to melt away. And this is the primary emphasis of everything we do in today's practice. So as we move through these physical actions and these movements, I want you to remember that the most important thing we're doing is the work on our limbic system, on our nervous system. This somatic practice of breathing deeply. So if anything feels intense or confusing for you, you have pillows and you have this deep posterior lateral breath and simple awareness to go back to. This is the thing that we're unloading the most right now, is the consciousness. So let's just take maybe 1 to 3 very deep, steady breaths from the position we're in now. And I just want to do some very simple morning stretch awareness. Good. And so we'll have our hands at our sides. Maybe if your hands are on your laps, if you're seated right now, then you can just let your hands rest down. And so try to keep that awareness and try to keep that deep breath from wherever you're at. And all I'd like you to do now is just wiggle the right hand while doing everything else that I mentioned before. Only the right hand, maybe spreading the fingers as wide as you can and closing the hand as tight as you can and spreading the fingers as wide as you can, and rinse, wash, repeat a few more times. Think about circling the wrist. And then you'll reach that right hand all the way down toward your feet, whether you're lying on your back or whether you're sitting in the chair. You're reaching as far as you can isometrically. Good. Welcome, Kayla. I've got everybody on their backs right now with pillows and with a strap on hand and a chair nearby with lights dimmed. We did a little breath awareness. They're stretching deeply through their right arm so that there's some energy, some strength, some integrity in there. And then when you're ready, you can just release it. And just taking that simple inventory, taking that simple awareness. We're going to do the same with the left hand now. So now we're going to open and close the left hand, just as we did with the right hand. Letting the entirety, the rest of the body, sit or lie heavy. Some circles, some controlled articulations of the wrist. Just simple circles. Good. And then we'll reach through the left arm, and we're going to bring some real energy into that left arm. So if you're lying on your back, you're imagining trying to touch the wall that's past your feet. If you're sitting in a chair on the ground, you're trying to reach your fingertips through the floor. So there's real energy in the arm. It's an isometric. It's a stretch. And we'll take a couple of real deep breaths through the belly and the back and the spine. Again, our primary objective is to work on expanding the rib cage and the belly and the back on the inhale. And release and surrender and allow tension to melt off the body on each successive exhale. So as we're done reaching through the left arm, we're just gonna either on our backs or on our chairs or on our seat, reach our straight and energized arms up overhead, as if you just woke up first thing in the morning and you're taking that first morning stretch and yawn. I'm inviting you to yawn if you wish. If you do so, try to fill your lungs up more than you ever have before. You can reach one arm up high, higher than the other arm, maybe opening up those ribs, and then do the same with the other arm. Can you connect that gentle, opposing reach overhead to your breath? So I like to reach with the left arm up overhead and inhale into those open ribs. Exhale out and switch arms. Then inhale into those open ribs. Exhale out and switch arms. And so if you're on your back, you have this added option. That option is when you're reaching with your right arm, you'll reach your right heel away from your right fingertips, as if your right foot and your right arm are trying to move as far away from each other as possible. While you're doing that, you can open your whole right side. The inspiration is a really deep morning stretch. When you breathe into the ribs and when you breathe into the low back, you'll feel that that deepens this isometric morning stretch on the right side. Consider switching sides, reaching high with the opposite hand, reaching hard with the opposite hand, and really opening the ribs. So Kayla, you can keep your sitting bones rooted onto your floor, so you're not trying to disturb the hips, right? And you're just trying to spread and open the side body. Take your head with you. Good. The same goes with you. Yes, Lenora, Tim, this is perfect. So you're just trying to really reveal your left side, guys. Tim, Lenora, Kayla. Okay? Again, the breath, this meditative breath, is the most important foundational thing. The more we're breathing, the more we're unloading our nervous systems, which we all need right now. Good. So we have left hand, left foot reach if you're lying down, and maybe you switch between the two. So reach the right hand up and the right foot if you're lying down, and then switch sides. And so we have this really nice kind of morning stretching action happening right now. Good. Now allow your hands to just fall back by your side. You can be seated, you can be lying down. The primary cueing is for a supine or lying down position, but wherever you are, just take your time to notice how your body feels after that very simple isometric stretching drill. Is there some sort of calm energy in the body? Has the breath caused that tension to settle a little bit? And this right here, this connection to breath and this momentary awareness, we can turn this on and off. And this is what's going to help us find calm in these really tumultuous moments where it feels like time is extraordinarily compressed. We forget that that switch is there sometimes, but we all have the innate ability to find it. And it's just taking time and choosing to slow the moment down right now that will get you there. So while we're doing that, let's just bend our knees and flatten our feet. Kayla, from the position you're in, the Sukhasana, cross legs position, just bring your feet forward so that your knees are bent and the soles of your feet are on the ground. Let me see, I'm changing my view. Yeah, there you go. That's it. Perfect. Lenore and Tim, you guys are really good. Your feet are already flat on the ground. So here's what you can do from there. We're going to widen our feet a little bit. Lying down, you're going to just start to passively windshield wiper the knees left to right. Kayla, if you want to stay upright, then here's what you do. You just stay seated in that way. Rest your arms behind you and windshield wiper the knees left to right. And what I want you to do is just find out what your passive end range is. Is there this kind of passive tension that's sitting in my pelvic girdle right now? Can I use that really extraordinary tool, the breath, and that minute inner space awareness, to use this movement to just open up my range a little bit more? Maybe I bring ease and relaxation into the body by connecting this essential breath to this movement. So we have this passive windshield wipering of the knees. Let's just open up the range a little bit more from wherever we're at. I'm going to give some options. From this supine lying down position, just to start to open the range, you can do hip stirs. So you take your hands on the front of your knee and just open. You can go single hand or two hands, and you're stirring your femur into your pelvis. Now we just want to avoid pinching in the hip socket. If you're sitting up and back slightly, you can put your hands on the front of your knee again. I'll show from here and do these hip stirs. Now, what are we trying to do? We're not trying to generate this movement using the musculature of the hips. We're trying to move the femur bone with the arms and just passively relax the hip flexors. A good additional tip is to find a way to connect your breath to this action. And look, if it feels like your hip muscles are dominating all of this movement, well, that's just information. You can just say, okay, I know that this is where I'm carrying some tension. There's no judgment here, right? I learned something about myself right now just from doing this. Maybe it's something for me to think about when I am feeling tense. And maybe you can do this with the other leg now, if you haven't done both legs yet. Reminder to go back to that breath in the entirety of the rib cage, low back, and belly. Good. I want to go into a bit of a sacrum twist. This one is best done supine. This is on our backs. I'm going to give you options for the chair. However, you may not find as intense a twist here. For now, let's just focus first on our breath again, lying on our backs. Good. I'm bending my knees and I'm flattening my feet. I'm going wide with my feet, so that's wider than shoulder width, and I'm going to windshield wiper my knees left to right. Here's what I'm going to do from my supine, my lying down position. Just so we're all on the same page, I'm going to let my left knee fall in toward my midline. I'm going to take my right foot onto the outside of my left knee. Do that gently and slowly. Allow your breath, your deep, steady breath we've been cultivating, to be the guide in this. when we're carrying tension in our hips, a lot of folks feel it manifest in the sacrum. And this is really what we're trying to do, is a gentle twist for the sacrum. While you're in this position, I'm going to give you some cues, and we might spend a little bit of time in it. Okay, so if you need to take a little break at any time, I'll invite you to do so. You can windshield wiper the knees, but I want to spend just a couple minutes. Think of it as kind of a mini restorative stretch. Gravity and your breath will be your work and your guide through this. Now, again, this is kind of a modification on what I showed you before, Lenora. For the sacrum, this internal external rotation is kind of okay for it's good for the sacrum. So you can kind of take the same tact seated. You will not feel that twist in the sacrum, and maybe you're trying to avoid that, but at least we're mobilizing the hips. Breathe into that. Maybe you notice on the in-breath, this is helping enhance this opening, this torsioning of the low back. The objective here is not to force today. The objective is to just allow ease to be your guide here. On the in-breath, imagine that your whole body is expanding in all directions. And then on the out-breath, consider that your body relaxes, it eases, it melts into this position a little bit more. From wherever you are, do consider coming out of this gently, bending the knees, flattening the feet, just taking a real soft windshield wiper. At times, what I will also do is do that big morning stretch one more time, reaching all the way through the fingers. And just notice if there's any difference in sensation from side to side. Has your range of motion changed at all? Has your relationship with the ground, with gravity, changed at all? And has your relationship with breath changed at all? And then we'll do the opposite side now. So prior, our left knee came into the midline. Now we're going to go right knee into the midline, everyone. Excellent. Then we'll take that left foot on the outside of the right knee. Great. Breathe into it. Breathe into the entire body and the ribs. Can you, on the in-breath, direct that breath into the space where you're feeling an abundance of tension or resistance? So we're not adding load to this sacrum twist with our limbs. We're adding load from the breath, from the inside out instead of from the outside in. And just let your nervous system advance this stretch from where you are. Good. Just take some time to maybe notice if there's any sounds in your room, or if your own body is making any sounds, if you can hear your own breath. While you're here, just take some time to notice what feels familiar and good. Okay, so from where we're at, I just want to be, I want to bring a little bit more focus into the hips. So gently come out of this sacrum twist. Perhaps consider doing the same thing as you did coming out of it last. So windshield wipering the knees. You can do some of these hip stirs from where you're at. a big reach overhead. Yep. So we went from our supine sacrum twists, and now we're just going to take it into this hip stretch series. So we'll go with the figure 4. So if you're lying on your back, just so we're all on the same page, we'll take our right ankle atop our left knee. Whether you're lying down or on your back, actually, you can do these things. I'm going to take my left hand behind my left thigh. I'm then going to thread my right hand between my thighs and then lace both my fingers behind my thigh. So the legs are making this figure 4 shape. So just right here, this might feel good enough for you tonight. Remember, the objective is not to force depth. The objective is to force breath. So a couple options for you in this gentle figure 4 is try to reach your spine longer by reaching through the crown of your head and reaching through your tailbone oppositionally. While you're intrinsically making the spine longer, try to think about making the ribs wider by breathing. Think about, lost my earpiece. Think about breathing more space into the spaces between the vertebrae. And just like we've been doing the whole time, we're inhaling to expand and we're exhaling to release. That's the primary practice here. Now, if you do want a little bit more depth from where you're at, you could take your hand in front of your knee. Now for me, just so we're all on the same page, I feel some opening in and about my glute, my right glute. I'm also feeling some gentle tractioning in my spine here, reaching my spine long along the ground. Even seated. So even seated, you know, you can lean on your chair back a little bit. You can, with your hands in front of your knees, just leaning back and just gently driving this knee down, open things up, or you can lean forward and get a very similar sensation seated, this figure 4. The heel lift from the seated figure 4 just gives you a little more depth. I'm gonna move back. So while everyone's in their figure 4, again, just going back to that breath, having that relationship with the nervous system, slowing down the present moment. Good. Keep breathing deeply in that. And instead of letting the force of your limbs to deepen that, just let time do it. We're taking a few more moments here. Now I'm going to give another option for folks who just want a little bit more depth. Most people are in figure 4 and are happy. What you can also do is cross your legs tightly. And so this is going to bring a little more opening to the hips. I'm using my hands to take a hold of my ankles, and I'm going to draw my feet a little higher up. I'm not going to go full depth here, but what I'm going to think about is the breath and keeping the spine long along the ground. Inhaling to expand and exhaling to release just a little bit more than the last breath. Let's say 3 to 4 more breaths, time to either rest where you're at or to stay in this stretch, this hip opener. Beautiful. And dear friends, I'm going to have you switch sides now. Yep. So I believe that I cued right leg or right ankle on top of left knee. Let's switch it. We're gonna go left ankle on top of right knee for figure 4. The couple cues I did share is, well, let's just enter it first. Left ankle on top of right knee, right hand behind the back of your right thigh, left hand threads between both legs and meets your right hand. From there, the things I'm thinking about first, the breath. Just trying to breathe deeply into the entirety of my lungs. Breathe deeply into the spaces that feel tight or restricted. And then exhale into the floor. Exhale into a little deeper release. And then if you wish to deepen this stretch, just use your hands first to pull your knee up a little closer toward your head. You can also opt to press your left ankle into your right knee and gently press your right knee into your left ankle. If it feels nice to do circles or any type of movement in these stretches, as long as it doesn't feel forceful, but there's ease here, then that's excellent. Good. You can choose to stay in this position. You can choose to take your hands to the front of your knee, as long as you're not feeling pinching or anything jagged in the body or in the breath. Or you can cross the legs tightly. You're going to root your sacrum on the floor and the back of your head on the floor, and then you'll take opposite ankles. This is just a slightly deeper option, and we are getting a little deeper into the glute muscles. So we're really working on the pelvis, which tends to carry a lot of anxious tension. Directing your breath there is always an excellent idea. Good. Stay steady with it. Susan says goodbye, everybody. She has a meeting at 7. Keep breathing deeply into this stretch. And then when you're ready, just uncross the legs and windshield wiper left to right. Good. Taking that simple inventory of how the hips now feel, whether they feel freer or not. Everybody just make sure you have a strap on hand. We're going to go into everybody's while we're lying on the ground. Now, Kayla, that can be a belt also if you don't have a yoga strap. Awesome. Yeah. Now, just see where you're at. See how your body feels. See if it feels freer, if it's a little easier to breathe, if it's a little easier to move around where you're at. I can't see many people, so even if you haven't done a lot of movement and instead you focused on the breath and awareness, how does the quality of your awareness feel right now? Does it feel a little different? Yeah. Than when you rushed into the room, than maybe when you woke up this morning? This simple awareness seems a little superfluous in our day-to-day life, but when you come back to that center, you come back to center. It just allows you to find that kind of neutral space in your mind. I have to do it 1,000 times a day and things are really good, at least more immediately in my life. But when I let the outside world come in, then yeah, you know, it's the same thing for me. So leg stretch is what we're up to next, okay? I'm gonna move us through this quicker than I usually do because I really wanna focus on what comes next. So as we lie on our back for this one, or if you're seated in a chair, Lenore, I'll make sure that you have a very similar cue. And I think you're pretty good at this point. You're really awesome at figuring out how I'm rolling too. So, all right, so from our supine that's on our backs position, let's just bring our mental awareness back to our breath, and let's bring our awareness to our right leg. Let's place the strap on the balls of the right foot. And now let's just play with some positional cues just to get us in the right place. So if you have the space, try to straighten out your unstrapped leg without forcing it. This isn't a kneecap on leg type of scenario. I want you to think about walking your hand up the strap so there's not a whole lot of slack in the strap, but again, it's still unforced. And now just play with straightening out. That's an aspirational word. Straightening out your right leg as much as your body wants, again, without forcing or taking a really active isometric stretch. And think about each time that you straighten and bend your knee, just try to notice if that edge of your range of motion expands a little bit more. Good. Return to breath. This full body, all-encompassing breath. Good. And from here, with your foot still in the position it is, I just want you to internally rotate your whole leg and externally rotate. So what does that mean? That means from where you're at, your big toe will go from the 10 o'clock position to the 2 o'clock position, or the 11 o'clock position to the 1 o'clock position, or 11:30, 12:30, whatever your body feels like giving you at this time. So we're just turning the foot in, turning the foot out, while we're playing with stretching the back of the leg, the hamstring, the calf, and the hip. Where is there tension in your body right now? And how can you direct breath into that space to help resolve it a little bit? I can't stress enough, for this work, the breath is the primary unloader. Good. Take a few more passes, and then we'll unstrap the right foot, and we'll take that simple inventory with straight legs, or if you're seated, feet flat on the ground. I'm windshield wipering my feet left to right and just seeing if I notice any difference, again, from side to side. And then immediately strapping my left foot. That was the unstrapped foot prior. And we're doing the same thing, trying to straighten out our unstrapped foot, which is now the right foot, or unstrapped leg, excuse the cue. We're trying to straighten the unstrapped leg. That's the right leg. And what you might notice is it's a little easier to do that on this side because we just took care of it. The right side feels a little longer. I'm going to gently start to straighten my left leg and then bend it at the knee and straighten and bend. And that strap is just giving me that little bit of resistance so that I can really feel what's going on in the stretch. Good. If you spread your toes while you're doing this, that'll help enhance the stretch a little bit more. And we're just looking for the incremental changes in our range of motion from doing this simple stretch. And then I'll start to tick-tock the foot, internally and externally rotating it while it's in stretch. And that stretch will radiate, it'll travel throughout the leg as you do this twisting of the femur bone in the hip socket, which results in the foot turning in and out. Breathing deeply. And so seated, even, you can use a strap on the foot the same way and bring it in front of you and turn it in and out, or rest your heel on the ground and do the same thing. and get a pretty decent stretch there. Okay, everyone. So a couple more breaths, or take a rest, take inventory, reconnect to breath. I just want to take a supine spine twist. So we're still on our backs here. Still trying to move smooth. Yep. Like we're moving through a milkshake, trying to keep our movements easy. I'm taking my right knee back into a tabletop position. My right knee is in a tabletop position as I lie down. Now I'm going to roll onto my left side completely so that the inside of my right knee is on the ground. I'm going to bring my attention to my left hand, and I'm going to place my left hand on the outside of the right knee. And so again, I give pretty strict cues for this, but really, I just want you to spend time breathing in this position for today. So I'm not going to be really deep or really religious about how you position your body. All I'm going to ask now is that you open your right arm and shoulder out as much as your body wants to do today. And again, instead of focusing on position to deepen this stretch, this twisting of the spine, do think about allowing that full breath we've been working on this whole time to do it instead. Inhale to expand and exhale to release the tension down. Allow the arm and shoulder to open. And I draw big circles with my right arm here. And one little tip is I do like to turn my head to the right so that my whole spine is twisting. It's almost like I'm looking over my right shoulder here. And I've got these big wide sweeping circles that are connected to my breath. Inhale, exhale, open out. So the gravity, breath, and the gentle movement is doing the work for you. And change directions with the arm if you are doing that gentle sweeping movement. And then after circling the arm however many times, maybe just open that arm back out. Again, focus on that inner space breath, expansion outward in all directions. Exhale, just melting into whatever position you're in without forcing anything. Just returning your attention back to your comfortable space as well, your home, where you're at. The things that feel familiar and good. And gently take yourself out of that spine twist, and we'll switch sides. So now my right leg's straight, my left leg's table-topped. And to get into it, I'm just rolling to my right side. Maybe I'm using my right hand to help my left knee down a little bit. And then once I've settled into this a tiny bit, then I'll open the left arm out. Without forcing it, just as much as gravity and the breath wants to take it. I might consider looking over my left shoulder. And notice with each breath, there is a little bit less jagged resistance in the body. And that same jagged resistance is what you're carrying with you more than you think, quite often, just as you move through life. So bringing the breath in to address this is always excellent. Now, in a chair, this is always just somewhat useful if you're able to sit side saddle in the chair and getting a safe grip on the chair. Again, not forcing it, just taking yourself into that gentle twist and letting the breath expand the rib cage and belly and back, and letting the out breath just bring a little bit of ease into that twist. It's good seated modification. So when you're ready to come out of this opposite side twist, before you come out of it, just notice which side felt a little bit deeper, which side didn't, just naturally. Which side was there more resistance on? How your body feels in relationship to gravity. Good. Couple deep breaths, and then we're all, dear friends, going to come to a seated position. So this is the time for chairs. So you'll pick your favorite side to roll on and roll on to that side. Press yourself upright to seated if you haven't yet, and then find your way to a chair carefully, especially if the lights are low. So those things probably felt mostly familiar. Some things that we typically do at the ranch in a stretch class. I always overplan, so I'm taking out the all fours position work. But I want to do some seated work here to kind of wrap things up. Kayla, how you feeling? Good? All right. Tim, Lenora, how you doing?
We took turns on the floor because there was only room for one of us
I know
on the floor.
it looks like you have limited real estate, but you're making good with it. So awesome. And look, I'm going to send you the video too, so you'll be able to kind of practice it on your own, you know, on the ground and that kind of thing. Yeah. So, all right, everyone. My pleasure. So, all right, we're back to the class. We have a chair, and pardon the delayed cue, if you can grab your strap again. Let's deal with the shoulder tension. We've been doing some hip work. We've been doing some spine work. So a postural therapy favorite, as always, is the scalene resistance stretch. So we're going to take our strap or our belt. You're going to place it on top of your shoulder here. Good. Now, we've done this a couple classes ago, but I'm going to modify it a little bit. I'm moving my chair back so I have room for white letters in the video. So I have the strap right shoulder, a somewhat equal amount of fabric in the strap on my front side and my back side. Both of those lengths of strap are gathered in my right hand, and I'm using my right hand on the strap to help draw the right shoulder down. Again, we're avoiding pinching today, right? Or in general. We don't want to force it. We're just creating some length on the side of the neck by grounding the right shoulder. Left arm is coming up overhead. And you're getting the tips of your fingers over the top of your right ear. Keeping your shoulder grounded, we're going to bring our left shoulder to our left ear. Keeping our right shoulder grounded, we're going to keep our left ear to our left shoulder. And you will feel a really nice opening on that right side neck. Can you direct your breath into the upper back and the upper chest when you're doing this stretch? Notice, am I pinching on my closed side? Am I feeling overstretching on my open side of my neck? And maybe just back off a little bit if you're doing that. But what I am going to give you is the resistance part of this. Again, we're not slamming in to the stretch. But what you want to do is you want to bring your head upright slowly, as if you're moving through water. So think about a 3 to 4 second movement. Your left hand is resisting on your head, so it's trying to stop it, but your head ultimately wins. And then again, resisting with your hand. This time the hand is going to win. Your left ear goes to your left shoulder. Do that just a couple of times slowly, as you keep your right shoulder grounded with the strap. So this is called a resistance stretch. I'm resisting with my left hand. And that resistance is even and steady through that entire range of motion. Can I connect it to my breath in the upper chest and upper back? I'm directing my breath into that place where I'm stretching. Good. Now let's look down at the ground. So yes, my head is coming forward. And we're going to do the same thing. We're bringing our left ear to our left shoulder with our head forward. And you'll notice that stretch has moved into the upper back, the upper traps, the top of the shoulders. Breathe into that tight space. And that same resistance stretch action we did, you can choose to bring in. Just as a reminder, you're keeping that resistance even and steady, slowly stacking the head upright. Keeping the resistance even and steady like you're moving through butter, slowly bringing the head back down and forward. That strap on the right shoulder is your buddy. It's helping you keep some structure. Resisting the head up and down slowly. Again, not forcing, no jagged movement. Smooth, steady movement and smooth, steady breath. Just tuning into that one space in the neck. It's nice to really kind of tune in. And now we'll return to neutral at your own time and direct your gaze up toward the sky or ceiling. I said sky because I'm outside. Same rules apply now. We're looking upward without craning our neck or constricting the front throat. We're using the strap to draw the shoulder down, and then we're bringing our left ear to our left shoulder. We're opting in or out of that resistance stretch approach. I like that resistance stretch approach. Once you get a rhythm with it, it really feels like it increases the mobility of after the stretch. It really addresses the fascial component because you're bringing movement in. Good. Let's take 3 or 4 more passes of the movement if you're opting into that, or 2 to 3 more deep breaths if you're staying static here. You'll come on out of it after that final breath or action and just take a simple assessment of what's happening in the neck. That no action, shaking your head no gently, you might feel a little more space on that right side. If you have a mirror in front of you, you'd be able to see that your right shoulder is lower. Let's go to the other side, strap on the left shoulder. Good, breathe deeply. Ooh. Good. That strap is the buddy. It's grounding the left shoulder. It's just giving you that gentle reminder that we're creating structure here. Right hand is coming overhead. Fingertips top of right ear. And then we'll bring our right ear directly over our right shoulder. Here we can really focus on the breath, breathing into the space of the left neck, the upper chest and back. Now that right hand isn't forcing the deal. The breath is bringing that openness in. The right hand is just like the strap, giving you a little structure to play with. Some real nice deep breaths here. You can take in that resistance stretch component. Go into it gently because this is a different side. Try to keep the chin tucked and the neck long here. Whether you're just in the static stretch or whether you're in this resistance stretch. I exhale when I lower my head, and I inhale when I stack my head. For future reference. A few more passes here. Then I'll invite you, once you've done a few more passes or breaths, to return to neutral and then direct your gaze forward at the ground, a couple feet in front of your feet. Good. This way our head is forward, connecting to the strap. Right hand over top of head again. And since our head is forward, we're directing our ear to our right shoulder, and we're bringing that stretch into the back of the neck a little bit more, and the trap. That's again the top of the shoulder. Try to keep the weight even on the sitting bones, just so that we're not coupling out of the stretch. The breath is our partner in this stretch. Really nice. Inhale, you'll feel the stretch deepen. Exhale, maybe try to bring a bit more ease into it. Resistance aspect, you know the drill now. Your hand is just helping create some resistance as your head is coming up and down. Again, that movement is like you're moving through butter, or you're moving through jello. It's smooth and unjagged. Good. Couple more passes. Return to neutral after those couple of passes. Let's direct our gaze, keeping our neck long, up toward the ceiling. Same thing, okay? Strap ring structure, right hand over the top of the left ear will help initiate the stretch. Now this is the muscles on the front of the neck. This is a complicated name, sternocleidomastoid, right at the front of the neck. When you take your hand off and put it back on, it should only be slightly noticeable. You can do the resistance stretch approach, just keep the neck long. Nothing forced today. A softer style than usual. Good. I'm giving time for a couple more passes. Couple more breaths. You'll release the strap from the shoulder and gently, slowly come up to neutral. Again, just taking that simple assessment, staying connected to breath. And for here now, what I'd like to do is bring our arms out to the side from our seated position wide. And you're gonna wrap your arms around yourself like you're hugging yourself. Now these are thoracic cars, and I'm going to deconstruct it, but this is really for middle back. This is really for thoracic spine. I'm just bringing some openness and some mobility. Now these cars, we can be really, really structured about them, and typically, again, I would be. But today I'm only going to give you a couple of quote unquote rules to think about. Some of them are the old favorites. Keep the breath deep and connected to this action, right? Think about inhaling to expand and exhaling to release. Try not to force anything today. Keep the movement smooth and buttery. Yeah. And then from here, we'll just move through this together a little bit. Deconstruction. We're going to flex the spine. What I want you to be cautious of is not grounding the shoulders down or squeezing the shoulder blades together. Try to keep the shoulder blades relaxed. We are trying to round our spine, tucking our chin as much as possible. And if you're an everyday human, you're probably going to feel a little bit of stretch through the middle back there between the shoulder blades and under them. So let's use the breath directed into those tight spaces to open things up. On the inhale, you expand the ribs. Maybe on the exhale, we try to flex or round through the upper spine a little more, less through the lower back, more through the upper spine. Couple deep breaths into this here. Those arms are staying tight around you, just to kind of keep the shoulders too much out of it. From here, keeping both of your sitting bones, right? We're now going to close our right side. It's going to be a mirror image here. And open your left side. That includes your neck. So your right side of your neck is closed and the left side of your neck is open. And there's going to be resistance when you get into that position first, right? You're going to want to tilt, but try not to force it. Just notice that on that open side rib cage, there's some opening. And on that open side neck, there's some opening. So just breathe into that. Try not to go the deepest you've ever gone, just let gravity take you there. Sits bones are roughly rooted 50-50. And now we're going to extend the spine. So do it gently. Let's try coming to neutral first so that we feel tall in our seat. Sitting bones are rooted into the floor. The chin is going to stay tucked for this action. The neck is going to stay long along the back side of the neck. We're going to keep our lower core muscles engaged and the upper abdominals, the musculature of the front ribs connected so we're not flaring. And then we're just going to, without slamming our shoulders down, keeping the shoulders out of it, we're just going to try to open the chest and extend the spine. Now you can notice here, I'm talking pretty much the same way as usual. So I'm not so far back that everything feels tight in the front. I'm just lengthening the spine more than I normally would sitting. Gentle back bend. Couple deep breaths here, keeping the whole spine long, reaching the tailbone and sitting bones into the chair and the crown of the head up and away. We're going to close the left side now and open the right side. This is our side bend. Good. Try to let the head come with it. Your head's going to want to go upright sometimes. I know mine does. But try to just let your left ear fall onto your left shoulder. Try to keep your sitting bones equally rooted. Try to really open the right ribs and breathe into the open spaces. Breathe into that tension or jaggedness or resistance. Exhale and you'll fall. I don't want to say deeper, but a little more into this position. Inhale to expand the inner body. Exhale to release. One or two more breaths here. Even though you're in a lateral bend, can you keep the spine long? Good, and front rib connection. And now let's just try to smoothly transition to our front flexion. And think about doing this. Rehug yourself, and we're going to smoothly travel between all four of those positions. Now, I know in our minds we're going to want to be a good student and go as far as we can, but maybe make that circle that you're drawing with the top of your head smaller than your reptile brain, right? Your competitive brain wants to. And change directions. So I'm imagining I have a marker on the top of my head and I'm drawing a circle on the ceiling. I'm in side bend right now, and then I'm in flexion, and then I'm in side bend, and I'm in extension. And as you travel from through those four cardinal positions, you want good feelings. You want connection to breath. And we want to avoid pinching or resistance or pain. And you're just traveling, doing a right circle to a left circle at your own kind of pace. Maybe one right circle, one left circle, one right circle, one left circle. And the real cue I'm thinking, or I'm just repeating, is the big expansive breath, in breath, that relaxing and surrendering out breath, and trying your best to keep your sitting bones left side, right side, evenly rooted into your seat here. Good. Now, when you're ready to return to neutral, we will. We're almost coming to the end of the sequencing here. what we just did with our thoracic spine, right? Our upper spine, we're now going to do with our cervical spine. So again, through this whole action, I want to keep perceived length in the neck, right? I want you to think about, for this, having a marker at the top of your head as well, still keeping the chin tucked and the neck long, and just drawing those big wide circles with your head. We've all done this kind of movement before, but what I'm looking for is maybe turning up the awareness here and turning down the speed, and just trying to find your own personal end range. So where does that movement start to feel jagged? Can you bring that range of motion just before where it starts to feel jagged? And can you start to think about maybe scraping away those rough edges with the movement, with the deep intrinsic breath? Yeah. Can you keep the shoulders gently grounded here? Grounded down. Yep. Not rounded, but rooted. Changing directions organically is a nice idea. Good. Couple more passes, and then we have to take some time to do one more quick thing, and then we have to finish the movement. Now, if you have a little extra time, I will give space to put everyone back on their backs and just do a quick awareness afterward. If you have to rush off, I take no umbrage. Before we come onto the ground, bring your right hand forward in front of you with the palm up. Good. We're going to take that right hand and bring it across our bodies. Now we are trying to ground our shoulders away from our ears, move them down. I'm using my left arm behind my elbow. If you need to go in front of your elbow toward your hand, also great. We're not forcing anything. We're not going our deepest. Instead, we're noticing where there's a stretch. Notice where that stretch is along the back of the shoulder and the middle back, and breathe into it. Breathe that awareness that we've all been working on creating into that tight space. Exhale that resistance, that tightness, that fear, that anxiety that sits in the muscles of the shoulders. Maybe you can do a gentle circle of that shoulder while you're in the stretch, as long as you're not feeling pinching or resistance. Just play with motion while you're in there. When you inhale in this, you can really feel that stretch inform itself with the in-breath. I mean, it just gets so much deeper. Release it down, shake it off. Taking that side-to-side inventory, we'll take the left hand forward afterward. We'll bring the left hand across the body, and yes, behind the elbow. A little bit of structure in the shoulders, but we're not slamming or grinding or overworking it. Palm up will help you get deeper under the shoulder blade if you have the range of motion. Breathing into that tight space is a good idea. So instead of relying on the right arm to make that stretch deep, see if you can allow the right breath to make that stretch deep. Ooh. You can bring in that really gentle movement into the shoulder as well. That's always really nice. And a few more breaths here. And shake it all off and just see how you sit in your chair. Good. And this formally ends the stretch. That's all the time we had for the stretch portion. However, if you are hanging out, I'm going to invite you now to, you can stay where you are. If you have the space to lay down, this would be a good time to do that again. Think of this as our sort of guided Shavasana. Just about 5 minutes for this, to take this final inventory. So as you sit or lie down, we're just returning back to that hopefully familiar place now. It's that oh so simple and pedestrian, granular awareness of the moment. And some would call that mundane, but to me, I think that that's foundational. Where am I right now in this time, in this place? My hope is that you're feeling better now than you were when you came in. If you are, please know that that did not at first come from me or come from this class. It came from a split-second moment. It was a split-second decision that you made to be here now in this place, to make the space for yourself. And that was your decision. And so I applaud you and I celebrate you for your efforts and your action. So returning to the inner space of the body, just notice maybe where there still might be some resistance. And instead of treating that with judgment, treat that as a friend, treat that as a guide. That's a message from your body that there is still a little bit of tension there. That is a place to address when the going gets rough. Also notice where it's easier to breathe. Also notice where in your body globally you feel a little bit more abundance of awareness. And so wherever your awareness is in your body, whether it's spread globally or in one place, I'm going to ask you to move that awareness to your feet, the spaces between the toes. Imagine moving your awareness directly under the toenails, the tips of the toes, the soles of the feet, the entirety of the soles, and the tender skin of the ankles. There's a really subtle tingling from directed awareness, if you can notice it. And now can you direct that very same awareness from your feet to your hands, the spaces between your fingers. That subtle space between the skin of the fingers and the fingernails. The tips of the fingers and maybe the perceived spaces between the bones of the hands. The underside of the wrists. Just take some time to notice that tingle of subtle awareness in those spaces before directing it to the front of the throat. The minuscule musculature of the face and the cranial muscles, and allowing that deep, steady breath to even move into those spaces. Allowing the eyeballs to sit heavy in the sockets and the tongue to do the same in the mouth. And when the face completely relaxes, it settles into a Buddha-like smile for almost everyone. Allow that awareness in the face and in the musculature of the top of the head to now direct itself into the space of the heart. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your attention there, because you know what to do with your attention there. Spend some time in there. Breathe. This place where your attention sits is where purest intention lives. It's where our intuition lives. It's the center of our strength and our inner integrity. And so when we direct our attention to this place inwardly, we can also project it in our daily lives outwardly. Move that attention to the floor beneath you, the floor beneath your feet, or your seat back, depending on how you're situated. Allow yourself to sit heavy for just a couple more moments. Just be in this moment one last time presently, taking those deep breaths, taking that slow inventory. And just maybe reminding yourself one or two more times that you brought yourself here today. When you're ready, we'll start to bring some movement into the fingers and toes and in the face. Maybe just take that gentle and slow morning stretch from wherever you're at, reaching the arms out or up, or maybe a twist or a yawn, a windshield wiper of the knees. And rest and pick your favorite side to roll on, and do roll to that side, pressing yourself up gently to seated. So just try to take however you're feeling right now with you into the rest of the evening. I know it might be different times for everyone, but Yeah, I wish you all a very peaceful evening and a peaceful remaining couple of days. And I just, before we unmute, I just want to thank you all for being here today and just taking it down a notch with me. So, yeah.